Player 2 has joined the game.
Trigger Witch is the second game created by Rainbite after Reverie was originally released for PS4 and Vita in 2018 and the Switch in 2019. Similar to Reverie, Trigger Witch is a 16-bit style game that draws clear inspiration from A Link to the Past, but opting for a twin-stick shooting gameplay style instead. It is available on PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, with PS5 and Xbox Series versions coming in the near future. Trigger Witch is also one hell of a fun game that we couldn't wait to talk about. Let's get into it.
Rainbite states that in Trigger Witch, players assume the role of Colette, a prospective graduate from the Stock, an academy for witchcraft and triggery. After a mysterious man in black invades her realm, events are set in motion that turn Colette's life upside down, casting her as the sole heroine with enough firepower to restore peace. Throughout her quest, Colette will come across a varied cast of different characters, both good and evil. While their backgrounds may be different, one thing that is consistent is the great writing on display. You are sometimes also presented with dialogue options that allow you to react in different ways, allowing you to shape your version of Colette as you see fit. Crafting a great narrative isn't always at the forefront of Zelda likes, but the story in Trigger Witch is one of its many strong suits.
As we mentioned previously, Trigger Witch is a beautiful 16-bit inspired game. The graphics are incredibly impressive, especially when you consider the size of the team over at Rainbite. The sprite work for Colette, other NPCs, enemies, and bosses are all well crafted with great detail put into character expressions during dialogue. It's easy to tell when a character is worried, angry, or elated during an interaction. There's also a great deal of variety in the enemy sprites, with the shield enemy being a personal favorite of mine. Bosses can fill the screen with extremely large sprites, while still containing the same level of detail as smaller characters. The style of everything also reminded us of one of our favorite Genesis games, Crusader of Senti. Even just walking around the world of Evertonia, you will notice small details like water effects and leaves swaying in the wind. The animation for everything is also buttery smooth, with no frame drops even when the screen fills up with enemies all around Colette. The screen will also fill up with blood and guts as you mow through your enemies, but this can be turned off in settings. The soundtrack changes from peaceful and whimsical while exploring the villages scattered around the world to an awesome metal track whenever enemies begin to attack. The guns are the focal point of the gameplay, and the sound effects for them are awesome as well. You'll even notice that the sound of them changes sometimes when exploring caverns and dungeons. Everything from a presentation perspective here is top notch.
In the most basic sense, Trigger Witch is a twin-stick shooter that draws heavy influence from The Legend of Zelda. There are also some vertical scrolling, top-down shooter sections, which fit well within the game's aesthetic. The player will face off against a flurry of enemies and will need to utilize their available weapons to overcome them. As the player defeats enemies, a potion will fill up, allowing you to refill your health at the push of a button once it's full. The game can definitely be challenging, but there are 5 different difficulties to choose from, depending on how much of a challenge you like. Thankfully, these can be changed on the fly if you feel you've made the game too easy or too difficult. The world is very open, with the player able to explore as they choose for the most part, although specific points of interest are denoted on the map to help guide you. Through forests, beaches, icy mountains, and other regions, the player will come across a variety of enemies during their exploration of the world. A large focus of the game comes in the form of dungeons, which will feel very comfortable to fans of games such as Zelda. The dungeons are large, but not overwhelmingly so, offering the player a nice balance of linearity with the feeling of being lost. The game is also fairly forgiving with autosaves too, so you won't lose too much progress if and when you die. At the end of each dungeon, you will face off against a boss, as you would probably expect. Throughout the game, you will find new weapons and abilities to help you along your way. Also, gems, which serve as the game's currency, can be used to upgrade your health and weapons. Overall, the game is very easy to pick up and learn and can easily be played for hours at a time or in short sessions if you prefer.
Overall, we have absolutely loved our time with Trigger Witch, and we are far from being done with it. For trophy hunters out there, this is a very achievable platinum with a fair trophy list that encourages you to try all the weapons and experiment with different ways to dispatch your enemies. We ranked A Link to the Past as our favorite game of all time, so to see a studio take the Zelda formula and turn it on its head with guns instead of swords was an interesting choice that instantly spoke to us when we first saw this game. Evertonia features a large world to explore, with plenty of dungeons and secrets for you to uncover on your quest. Combine that with a beautiful art style, excellent twin-stick controls, and an engaging and well-written story, and you get a winner in our minds. We thoroughly enjoyed our time so far with Trigger Witch, and we give it an overall score of 9 out of 10.